Hey y'all, it's Megan. Welcome back to the channel. Glad y'all are here today. We'll be spending most of our time in the kitchen today. I'm going to be showing y'all one of my favorite ways to make cube steak and gravy. I'm going to be making some deviled eggs, some green beans and potatoes, and some pone bread. If you're new around here, me and Andy and my two kids, we live on about 18 acres in the foothills of North Carolina. We grow about 80% of our food, and I'm going to kind of show you what that looks like today. Everything I'm going to be making today, besides the flour that goes in the pone bread, was raised right here on our farm. So today, it's a little bit before lunch right now, and I've decided I want to do my cube steak in the crock pot. I like to do cube steak a couple different ways. Sometimes I'll bread it and fry it and make gravy with it that way, but I really do like doing it in the crock pot. It makes it, I mean, fork tender. You ain't got to cut it with no knife or nothing, and it makes a really good, flavorful gravy doing it in the crock pot. And plus, it makes my life a little easier when I get to doing evening chores. That's one less thing I have to worry about. So we're going to run down to my grocery store. We're going to grab what we need for today's supper while I'm waiting on my water to boil for my eggs. And if you don't know, this right here is what I refer to as my grocery store. Down here in our root cellar basement, this is where I keep most of my canned food. All right, I'm gonna need some chicken broth for my cube steak and some green beans. Let's see. I like to try to use the oldest ones first. Those will work. Those are Kentucky Wonders. They'll be good with our taters. So one thing I found, and I know there's a blue million ways to peel boiled eggs, especially fresh eggs. But one thing I have found, if I keep my eggs in the refrigerator, which a lot of them I keep out on the counter, but for boiled eggs, which is what Andy loves to eat for breakfast, so I do keep some in the refrigerator to make them peel easier. Cold eggs go into hot boiling water for about 12 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. And straight back into cold water, let them cool just a minute, and they usually peel pretty good doing it that way. So we're gonna just boil 4 eggs for our deviled eggs. I ain't feeding no crowd, so. And I have plenty of eggs right now. Where it's springtime, the chickens have really picked up laying. So I try to utilize eggs in my suppers. Alright, we're going to let them go to town and we'll get started on our cube steak here. I like to use a little bit of chicken broth as my liquid with my cube steak when I'm doing it in the crock pot. If I don't have chicken broth though, y'all, I just use water and it still turns out really good. So if you don't got chicken broth, it's all good. Let's pop this open. I hear the seal break. Smells fabulous. That's just a pint that I'm putting in there for this. It don't take much liquid. And I'm going to go ahead and lay my pieces of cube steak in my liquid. Now when you get cube steak done at the processor, it can be all kinds of shapes and sizes. Like I've got some big pieces, I got this little tiny strip. You know, just expect that. Let's throw in a couple of cloves of garlic. I ain't no use to chop it up. That'll still give it plenty of flavor. Some salt. Black pepper. I think I'm going to use some Dano's seasoning for this. It's like an all-purpose seasoning. It's pretty good. Throw in a little Wash Your Sister sauce. And what we'll do is we'll stick that on low. We'll let that cook for 6 hours, something like that. And then when it gets closer to supper, we'll go ahead and make our gravy to go with it. And I'll show y'all what that looks like. But first, got to wait on my eggs to get done now. And I was thinking about it. I always like to try to keep dessert. I believe I may make an applesauce cake for dessert tonight. So we may make that here in a little bit too, because it won't hurt it to sit. Actually, applesauce cake is better after it sit for a little while. If you've never had applesauce cake, it's super easy and it is oh so good. All right, for my deviled eggs, they've boiled completely. I dumped out that hot water and put cold water back in my pot, so they're ready to be peeled now. You're going to want a plate and a bowl, at least that's the way I do it anyway. And we're going to peel these eggs. One way I found that makes it a little easier, the kids like to shake them up in jars. I like to gently roll it across the counter like that. And then we're going to hope it peels. I always hold my breath every time. See how that just comes off like that? All right, I'm gonna rinse that off. Now we're gonna cut our egg long ways, like that. And we're gonna dump our little yolk in our bowl. And we'll just do that with the rest of them. See that? When I rolled that one, look at there. That just come off on by itself. The key is when you do roll them on your counter like that, don't mash them too hard. There we go. Now for our deviled eggs, we're gonna need about a little less than 1/4 a cup of mayonnaise. Nice little spoonful like that. Around a teaspoon of mustard, something like that. Not much. That'll overpower it in a hurry if you put too much. Pickle juice. And these are some pickles, dill pickles that I made back in the summer. And a little bit of salt. And a little bit of pepper. We'll need that spoon again here in just a second. And we're just gonna mash all this up together till we get a pretty smoothish mixture to go back in our eggs. Now, some people like to put chunks of pickles in them. I like them either way. Today, I'm not going to be cutting up any pickles to put in them, though. They're also really good if you make cowboy candy. Chop you up a couple of those peppers in that cowboy candy and put it in your deviled eggs. That's really good, too. But we're just making some simple ones today. See how smooth that got? Just kind of mash and stir. So, since we're not going to be using this fork anymore, I always like to give it a little taste test to make sure it tastes the way I want it to taste. Oh yeah, perfect. So I'm going to stir it the rest of the way and get the rest of that mayonnaise off that spoon. Just going to scoop that into our egg whites here. Some people do this with like a piper, like what you put icing on a cake with. Ain't that fancy, y'all. They still eat just the same. And last but not least, pretty much to make them look pretty, not even for any other reason, we're going to do a little bit of paprika. Just like that. And there's our deviled eggs. I'll cover those and stick them in the fridge till we're ready to eat supper tonight. Ain't they pretty? Alright, we're going to go ahead and get our dessert made too. This applesauce cake, like I said a while ago, it's actually way better after it sits for a day or two. So I'm going to go ahead and get this made. First thing we're going to need is about a half a cup of applesauce. Half a cup of applesauce and a half a cup of milk. We're going to put us 3 tablespoons of lard in my glass pan. We're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We're going to grease our pan as well as melt our grease. I've already got my oven set on 350 degrees. That won't take that long to melt. Now, we're going to combine our applesauce and our milk. Now we're going to add us a little vanilla. There we go, a couple teaspoons or so. Get that mixed in. We're going to add a little apple cider vinegar, about a tablespoon. I need 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. There we go. 1/3 cup of sugar. A teaspoon of salt. I need 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder and 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. A 1/4 to a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. I'm going to do a full 1/2 teaspoon because we really like cinnamon. There we go. You can also at this point add you some chopped nuts or raisins if you want to. I'm not going to today, but that also makes it really, really good. There we go. It's melted enough. And we're going to get this all combined. All right, we're ready to scoop this out into our 8x8 pan. I know it seems super simple, but y'all, it's really good. Y'all seen how fast I just threw that together. So we're just gonna spread that out. And there it is, got it all nice and smoothed out. We're gonna cook this for around 18 minutes on 350 degrees. I'll show you what it looks like when it gets done. All right, let's get this out. Golly, this thing smells so good. Alright, we're done. So, next thing on the list, what you want to do, I'm just going to let it cool. You can eat it just like this right here with a scoop of vanilla ice cream. It's really good that way. I'm just going to make a simple glaze icing, kind of like a thin icing to put over top of it, but I want it to get pretty cool before I do that. So, I'll let it sit here and do this. I'm going to piddle around with some housework and I'll get back to you when I'm ready to do that. All right, y'all, I've let my cake cool for a little bit, so I'm gonna go ahead and make the glaze so that glaze can be kind of sitting on there, soaking down into it. So what you're gonna start off with, I mean, it is super easy to make. Start off with you a couple of cups of powdered sugar. Throw a little vanilla in there, about like that, just enough to give it some taste. Now all we're gonna do is slowly start adding in some milk. You just add you a little at a time until you get the consistency you want. That right there, what I put in there all together was probably about 4 tablespoons. And there it is. That's the consistency I'm looking for. Just making sure it ain't too many lumps or nothing in here. Let's take our cake and we're just gonna pour this over our cake. Now this is also good. I've made cream cheese icing to put on it. That's pretty good, but our favorite is this glaze like this. Into the fridge it goes till we're ready to eat it. So now that I've got all this done, it's time to head out. I'm gonna do my evening chores and then we'll get to the rest of the supper. All right, we're going uphill, so come on. You watch back there for me. How's it looking? All right. That's all right. Are y'all hungry? All right. Before I move on to check my eggs, any of the rest of y'all's husbands just come home from work and do random things you never thought they'd do or never had planned for that day? You come home and it's burning that brush pile that's down here in the middle of our pasture. Luckily we had some rain, so everything's wet and it's a good time to do it anyway. Y'all have any eggs for me today? Thank you, thank you. Now that I've got all that put up, I gotta wander down here to my potato box and get me just a handful of little potatoes out and put in one of my green beans. I see it. Maggie's giving Lovey some loving. She's brushing him. He's shedding, ain't he?
Yeah, so look at his hair.
I see it.
Look, his normal hair doesn't look like this, but look at that. It feels like cotton.
It looks like cotton, don't it?
And it feels like cotton.
Yes, it does. go ahead and let our potatoes and green beans cook. Now, of course, these are pretty much cooked because they're canned, but I like to cook them down a little more than this, and plus we're gonna let them just simmer until our potatoes are tender. So I gotta get my potatoes peeled and get them in there. And I'm still making my way through our potatoes from last season. They're still keeping good down there, even though we've had some warmer weather, which I know they ain't gonna keep down there a whole lot longer. I love potatoes and green beans. It kind of changes it up a little bit. It ain't just potatoes and it ain't just green beans. It kind of has its own flavor to it. Sometimes when you eat the way we do, especially once it gets to getting this time of year, especially with the vegetables, stuff starts getting pretty redundant. And so you try to make it, change it up a little bit. This is one way I like to do that. But hopefully it won't be too terribly long. I'll be getting me some new potatoes. And now you talk about good eating. I love new potatoes. It's so funny though, when I go down there and look, I can always tell which potato size is my favorite because I barely have any medium-sized potatoes like this one left. Most of them are the small ones. Because, you know, the bigger the potatoes, the less potatoes you got to peel, especially when you're making something like this, or mashed potatoes, or stewed potatoes. Because I don't know about y'all, but I just ain't a fan of peeling potatoes. But if your potatoes that you've put up are growing eyes like this, they're still totally edible. Just cut them off. All right. I'm gonna make sure my potatoes is covered in water and that my beans are covered in water. All right. I'm gonna let that sit over here and simmer. I'm gonna throw in some salt, some pepper, some onion and garlic powder, there we go, and the star of the show, I'm gonna throw in a nice bit of bacon grease. When I put my potatoes in there, I don't usually put a chunk of meat in there then, but I do like a good scoop of bacon grease. And now I'll taste them after they've simmered for a little bit. They're probably more than likely gonna need some more salt, but I'll let them cook for a little bit and then I'll assess the situation. Now, the next thing we got to get going is our pone bread. Now, there's a lot of different names for pone bread that I learned from years ago when I made an original pone bread video. Now, my whole life, that's what it's always been called, and I never noted it as anything different, but I think some people said they call it biscuit bread. Some people call it a hoecake. There was a lot of names for it. So y'all let me know in the comments what you call it. It was pretty interesting way back when to see all those names. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to be making like a partial recipe today in my small cast iron pan. I won't be making a full big 8-inch pan full. Now the first thing I'm going to do is melt me a big old tablespoon of grease. You don't have to melt it, but I have discovered that this actually works and your bread turns out great either way. And it's actually a little easier than just standing there working it in the flour. So we're gonna melt it today. And this is the little pan I'm gonna be using, but I'm just gonna go ahead and I'll melt this grease in that pan. I'm gonna do about a cup-ish of self-rising flour. Maybe a cup and a half. And in my pone bread, I always like a little bit of sugar versus salt. Now, that's about a half a tablespoon for the small amount that I'm going to make here, but you ain't got to put that in there. You can put you a little bit of salt instead if you want to, which I'll still give it a sprinkle of salt, but it does give it a little bit different flavor if you put that sugar in there. So, a little bit of salt. That was probably more than a little bit. And we're just going to get those dry ingredients mixed in there. Alright, my grease is pretty much melted. I'm going to go ahead and dump that in there. And we're going to pour in some milk. Go ahead and start mixing. Now, I don't really have an exact measurement on the milk. But what I want you to do is, you want this to be pourable. See, that's not pourable right there. We're going to pour enough liquid in there that it's thin. Thin and almost runny. If you don't want to use milk, you can do half milk and half water, or you can do all water. My granny used to make biscuits using water instead of milk because she did not like milk. She didn't like to look at milk. So she made hers with water. There we go. Now, see that texture there? That's pretty darn perfect. Pone bread is so easy. Like, in a lot of ways, I think it's easier than biscuits because there's no, I don't know. You don't have to make a shape. Alright. Now, we're going to stick that in a 425 degree oven until it is starting to get brown on top, and you can smell it. When you start smelling your bread, you know it's really getting close to being done. So that's probably going to take it 20 to 30 minutes. We'll check on it at the 20-minute mark and we'll just see what it looks like. So I just got my pone bread out. It took it just a hair over 20 minutes. Y'all see how pretty that is? We're going to flip that out on a plate. We'll get our cube steak gravy made and we'll be ready to eat. Perfect. Boy, don't that look good. Now we're going to go ahead and make our cube steak and gravy. We just need to melt us a little bit of grease in our pan. I'm going to do butter for this one. So just probably about a tablespoon or two of butter. Let that melt. Now to our melted butter, we're going to add just enough flour to soak up that grease. This is going to make us a real nice gravy here. I'll let that cook just a minute. Now, by now, our cube steak has made a fabulous broth in here, along with that delicious chicken broth. Look here. So, we're going to dip the broth out of here into our roux. And that'll be our liquid. And that's going to have all those flavors from that meat and the seasons we put in it and all that stuff. See why I said in the beginning it's pointless cutting up that garlic? I can just have the garlic taste without the garlic chunks. And this is gonna make us just a really delicious gravy, I'm telling you. And we'll gauge our thickness once it gets to that point. Because if it's too thick, we can always add water or milk to thin it out. It'll thicken up some as it simmers. You can see right now it don't look thick at all, but you just give it a few minutes, it will be. If your gravy ever tastes like it's missing something, more than likely it's salt. All right. So it's simmered for a minute. I'm pretty satisfied with the texture that it is. I'm gonna go ahead and add in my chunks of cube steak while that's simmering. Let that simmer in that gravy a little bit. And I know a lot of people like it better with the bread and on it. I'm gonna tell you, it's great like this right here too. This is probably my favorite way to cook it. All right, we'll just let that simmer another probably 5 minutes or so. And we're gonna fix us a plate because I just checked my potatoes over here, my beans, and they're done, fork tender, so. Yep, we're gonna eat in just a few. You didn't burn nothing down, did you?
Not yet. It's still going though.
It's died down though, right?
It's smoking a lot
I'm gonna
now.
send you back out there. All right, we've got beans and potatoes, cube steak and gravy. This is the crock pot cube steak and gravy.
Okay.
Pone bread and deviled eggs. It don't sound too bad, does it?
It looks good. It ain't rolling like it was.
Oh, good.
I'm going back out there and I get done eating there. I can see it right there. Deviled eggs. I love deviled eggs. But it's burned up good though. I'm surprised at how well that thing's burned up.
Oh, good. Did you see the little spoon there if you wanted some more gravy?
No. What little spoon?
Right here.
Oh.
That's what I put it there for, because I know you.
Yeah. Put a little bit more on my steak.
There you go. Give me a couple of those. Now, that right there looks like some mighty fine eating.
It's like my kind of eating. What are you talking about?
Get you a piece of bread. You gotta have something to sop that gravy up with. No.
All right.
But we're gonna eat us some supper and then we'll cut into the applesauce cake. I got applesauce cake too, I forgot.
Applesauce cake's good. I love that stuff.
So this is what my glaze looks like after it's been in the refrigerator for a while. And like I told you earlier, the longer these sit, like this will be even better tomorrow. The longer they sit, the better they get.
It soaks it up.
Yeah.
Sorta.
Let me get us something to cut it with.
It's like a big honey bun.
Kind of, yeah. That's a good way to explain it.
And I like honey buns.
Oh, you already got a fork?
I got me one. It's the one I ate with. Or maybe it's more like a cinnamon roll. No, it ain't really.
Well, I mean, it's kind of cinnamony.
Kind of cinnamony and kind of honey bunish. I don't know. Either way, it's good.
So I'll let y'all see kind of what that looks like up close. It is so good. So guys, I guess we're going to enjoy our dessert. We got a few more things to do outside this evening.
Well, I got to go tend to a fire.
But anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed today's video. Hope you might have learned a little something until we see y'all in the next one.
Well, have a good one.
Have a good one.
Have a good one.
Oh yeah. It was good.